So what do American soybean farmers, the President of the United States, and your favorite social media app all have in common? Well, believe it or not, they're all tangled up in the middle of a massive trade war between the US and China. In this explainer, we're going to break down how this global showdown is changing our world, one soybean, and yeah, one viral video at a time.
Let's just start with a number, because this one tells a heck of a story. Minus 81%. When you see a drop that big, you know something major is going down.
So what is that 81%? It's the total collapse in new U.S. soybean sales to the rest of the world. It's a direct hit on American farmers, and it's all thanks to this renewed trade war. To really get a handle on this, we need to go back to the beginning.
So rewind to early 2025. The Trump administration decided to reignite its trade war with China, hitting them with some pretty sweeping tariffs. To do it, they declared a national emergency, pointing to all sorts of threats, everything from fentanyl coming over the border to the trade deficit.
But, these big high-level decisions can feel a little abstract. To really understand the impact on the ground, we've got to zoom in, way in. From the global stage, right down to a single but incredibly important American export, the soybean.
To say China is a big customer for U.S. soybean farmers is, well, a huge understatement. For decades, they haven't just been a buyer, they've been the buyer. Just last year, they bought 54% of all U.S. soybean exports. That is a customer you absolutely cannot afford to lose.
But here's the thing about trade wars. They force people to look for new partners. With U.S. soybeans suddenly way more expensive because of tariffs, China turned to Brazil. And the result? A massive, seismic shift in the global market. Brazil's share of Chinese imports went through the roof. And this wasn't just some temporary fix. It completely redrew the map.
And this chart, wow, it just lays out the financial hit in stark terms. Before the first trade war, U.S. soybean sales to China were a nearly $13 billion a year business. Then, bam, the first tariffs hit, and that value was more than cut in half. Things recovered for a bit, but these new tariffs threatened to just wipe it out entirely.
And this slide right here, this gets to the absolute heart of the crisis. Because of the new tariffs from China, their purchases of the next U.S. harvest just completely flatlined. Zero. I mean, can you imagine? You're a farmer, your crops are almost ready, and your biggest customer in the world has just vanished. It's got to be terrifying.
So, this all raises a pretty big question. How is this even possible? How can the president, just one office, make these huge economic moves that affect so many people? Let's take a look at the legal powers that are actually being used to fight this trade war.
Now, you'd think Congress controls trade, right? I mean, it's right there in the Constitution. But, and this is a really big but, over the years, Congress has actually handed over a surprising amount of power to the president. They've created this whole toolkit that can basically be used to reshape global trade with just the stroke of a pen.
Okay, so one of the most powerful tools in that kit is something called IEPA. It sounds complicated, but the gist is this. It lets the president declare a national emergency and then take these huge economic actions. So by calling things like trade deficits or fentanyl trafficking extraordinary threats, the administration could use this law to slap on tariffs.
And then there's another one, Section 232. This is another major lever. It lets the president put tariffs on imports if they're seen as a threat to national security. Now, national security is a pretty flexible term here. It's been used to argue that relying on foreign steel or aluminum or even cars could weaken the country, which opens the door for a lot of tariffs.
All this economic pain, especially out in the American heartland, it created this immense pressure to find a way out. Both sides really needed a deal. And the key to breaking the deadlock, the thing that unlocked it all, it came from a very, very unexpected place, a social media app.
So the road to this deal was a real tightrope walk. It kicked off back in April 2024, when Congress passed a law that basically forced a sale of TikTok's U.S. business. By late September, an executive order set the stage, and then just a month after that, a final agreement was hammered out, shifting control to a whole new group of investors.
The deal was made official by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, but listen to how he talked about it. This wasn't just some social media transaction. No, he framed it as a key piece of a much bigger puzzle, a framework for a potential trade deal between the U.S. and China.
So this was way more than just one app. It was a whole package deal, right? Designed to cool the whole thing down. In exchange for finalizing the TikTok sale and cracking down on those fentanyl chemicals, the U.S. took tariffs off the table. And China? They agreed to start buying American farm products again, which was critical relief for those farmers we were just talking about.
Okay, so a truce was reached, but that brings up a much bigger, much more important question. Was the damage already done? Has this trade war permanently changed the map of global commerce? This chart really suggests that the shift away from U.S. soybeans might be here to stay. Just look at the projections. Brazil is on a path to supply 60% of the world's soybean imports, while the U.S. share is expected to shrink down to just 26%. The market has fundamentally changed.
Think of it this way. The U.S. basically forced its biggest customer to go find other sellers. And that's exactly what China did. They built new supply chains, new relationships with countries like Brazil. American farmers lost their top spot in the world's biggest market. And that is a change that could very, very well be permanent.
And that really is the big question we're left with. A truce might have put this particular battle on pause, but has it sped up this bigger trend of decoupling, where the world's two biggest economies just pull away from each other? The global trade map that we all used to know has been redrawn, and the question now is, will it ever look the same again?